Listen, I have an idea.
It's how I feel when you make lemonade. Whatever today has given you. 5'11" headaches, still call it Thanksgiving. True.
Welcome to another edition of the Super Dupa podcast. I'm your host, Rob Griggs, here with the super producer, Ez McMahon.
Yes. What's going on, Rob? How you doing, man?
I'm good, my man. How about yourself?
I am doing very well. Glad to be here.
I just realized we've been talking for 20 minutes. I just noticed this cold Blackhawks hat that you got, my man.
It's decent, huh?
That's pretty fresh. Gotta give it to you. But thank you for checking out the Super Duper Pod. We do not take your listens lightly. Make sure you follow us on all socials, SUPA, DUPA, POD. What up, Sarah? And online at hp53productions.com, where you can get your herch and additional content such as the Father Good podcast. And our own Ez McMahon with the Easy Smoke and GM podcast. Usually Ez and I get into the back and forth about the sports world, but we got a jam-packed pod today. We have the one and only Dr. Williams joining us today because, check it out, we're going to wait till about May to get him on the pod, but stuff is happening every day with Trump. I mean, I got a buddy, you know what I'm saying, he has a diplomat, so he was like, can you do a podcast about Trump and this stuff, please? I said, well, let me hit Dr. Williams, and he was like, I was about to hit you. Because it's like this stuff is getting wild.
There's a lot going on right now.
That's a lot going on. So, you know, Dr. Williams took his time. So definitely want to make sure we lay it out for him, phrasing. But before we get into Dr. Williams, just want a couple quick things. So this month is April, and it's Autism Acceptance Month. So just a few facts. Now, again, I talk about it openly. I have children who have been diagnosed with autism. And I talk openly about just, you know, the joys and the challenges of raising children with autism. And I know there are a lot of parents and people out there that this time of year you see people wearing blue. You know, I just happen to have a blue today. And also just something to think about that. But, you know, there's a few facts about National Autism Acceptance Month. I got this from Perplexity. Shout out to Perplexity. We actually use some Perplexity. It's asked from Allen Iverson actually used more like a research thing. So when you ask it a question, it gives you the answer.
I done told you about that Allen Iverson.
Hey, man, listen, we just gonna figure this out, all right? And I also use Perplexity with Dr. Williams. He was taking notes, man. So, you know, so shout out to Perplexity. So the origins, so here we go. Autism Awareness Month began in April 1970. That's what it used to be called. Initiated by the Autism Society. It evolved into Autism Acceptance Month to emphasize inclusion and acceptance rather than just awareness. I thought that was a pretty good point because, you know, you don't want it just to be like, we know y'all got autism. Good luck. It's really just like, how do we integrate these people into society, right? The shift to acceptance, the shift from awareness to acceptance started gaining traction around 2011 with organizations like the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network promoting acceptance. The Autism Society officially made the change in 2021. You know, I think I talked about this before on the pod. I've been more thinking about the future of, you know, my children, right? And just like how, you know, because you think about autism or somebody's autistic, you think of a kid. But there are a lot of people who are managing the world with autism. And, you know, people will say jokes here and there, like, oh, he must be on the spectrum. I had to check you from time to time just to let them know that's not always a funny joke unless you're using it the right way, right? But the people are managing their lives and working, they like to just put people with autism in data entry jobs. Like they know how to do other stuff.
Right.
They just type numbers all day. But it's that you have to accept them and make the space available for them to understand, hey, this is how they work, how they think, how they operate. Because the thing is this, all of us have a way that we learn, right? It's just we can learn maybe a little faster in person with autism, but what it's helped me figure out is just like everybody got something that they need a little help and assistance with. Theirs is just more on display than the natural person. So back to this global recognition, Autism Acceptance Month is now recognized internationally, with many countries participating to raise awareness and promote acceptance. Symbols and language. So the puzzle piece, this is when we first kids got diagnosed, I got all kind of shirts with puzzle pieces on it. I got a whole Captain America joint with a shield. But apparently the puzzle piece is no longer a good thing to do. So I got to burn my shirts. Is being replaced by
the puzzle piece has been canceled.
Check it out. Isn't that crazy? They canceled autism.
Wow.
The puzzle piece symbol is being replaced by the infinity symbol to represent acceptance and diversity.
Okay.
Many prefer identity first language over person first language. So they had, let me see, I found some notes. So it was saying like the puzzle piece, people just looked at it as like you're fit, you have to fit in, or you standing out, you need a piece, you know what I'm saying, something, you're broken, things like that. And it's like that's not what this is about. This is just more about an accepting infinity thing. I didn't see a problem with it, but I guess now it's gotten canceled. Let's see. So here's the information about the puzzle piece. So the puzzle piece symbol for autism evolved significantly since its introduction in 1963. So the origins of Gerald Gasson, he designed the symbol to represent autism as a puzzling condition. Ugh. The original design featured a crying child, emphasizing the challenges and perceived burden of autism. So yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah, it had to go.
Yeah. It had been long enough. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah. I'm not even gonna read the rest of it. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think we're cool. I think we're good, Ez. Yeah. So I'll say this part. So many autistic individuals view the puzzle piece as infantilizing and harmful, suggesting autism is a problem to be solved, or that autistic people are incomplete. So this led to backlash within the community. Man, everybody getting canceled. So shift to the infinity symbol. Shout out to Marvel. In recent years, the puzzle piece has been replaced by the rainbow-colored infinity symbol by some groups. This new symbol represents diversity, acceptance, and the spectrum of neurodivergence, moving away from the idea of fixing autism. Because that's something. When I read that, I appreciate that, because sometimes when the kids first were diagnosed, you would hear Black people say "fix it," and maybe it'll be over. It's like, no, this is just how they operate.
Yeah. There's
it's not like it's not an oil change. It's not a broken tail light.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just we had not have to like manage the world. Like for example, with Brooklyn, shout out to the boys. They are the best. Like if boys can tell me Brooklyn don't like this song, hey Dad, she's getting upset. We just know how to manage. Take it a family night, or you just kind of got to prep it a different way. It doesn't mean things are impossible. You just now have to understand this might make her mad, and sometimes I just know, hey, she's about to be mad, guys. So y'all just stay back, and Daddy will handle it until we calm down. But shout out to everybody that is affected by autism, be it you are an autistic person, you are a caregiver of one, you are a family member of someone else. Again, I share my story because I know people come up to me and will say, hey, I got a cousin that's autistic, and I have a brother who has a son that's autistic, and I think I just like to let people know that you are not by yourself, because it's not a debilitating disease. I knew a guy who found out his kid had autism, and he was talking as if his kid had some terminal disease. And I was like, bro, your kid's not dying. They gonna give you a plan. You know what I'm saying? It's just gonna be harder than your average bear, but that's okay. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the whole thing. People who I would tell people they had to them go, oh no, oh God, I was like, my children are alive. They are at school right now. Like it's cool. It's fine. You know what I mean? So I do like this move toward acceptance. You know what I'm saying? But I did see the NBA. I don't know if you saw this. Of course you didn't. It was the NBA. The coaches were they have on these.
I actually watched them.
Yeah.
I'm lying. No, I didn't.
And that's what I'm saying.
I watched one Bulls game.
Like front, dude. The coaches in the NBA had these Autism Acceptance Month I'm gonna say flavored tailored Nikes. And they had the infinity symbols on them, and they were the colors of the teams. They were cold.
Oh wow, okay.
I was looking for them to buy some. I was gonna buy a couple of them, but I guess they were just custom made for the coaches, and they're gonna be sold off in auction, and all the proceeds are gonna go to various organizations. So
I'm sure you can find a way to get those though. Maybe not those, but get your own custom.
I'm gonna definitely try because they ain't worth fire.
Yeah.
A couple more things before we get out of here, man. Well, before we introduce the one and only Dr. Williams, you guys' favorite man, you wanna know how old we are? We're so old that Carl Thomas's Emotional album will be 25 years old in a week. Like That's crazy. It was released April 18, 2000. Like I Wish came out in 25 years ago, early 2000. That's
can you tell people that?
What? That's 25 years old?
Yeah, I Wish.
I'm sure. I mean, why not? It's what it is. They got
Okay.
Wikipedia.
All right.
Hey,
I'm
listen.
just saying,
This I think this is one of the
I don't
last.
want to get canceled today.
This is one of the last R&B. Wait, what did he do? What Carl Thomas do?
Wait, wasn't I Wish a
R. Kelly song?
yeah.
Yeah, but I Wish also was a Carl Thomas song.
Oh.
Like his famous song. Yes. And I wish I never met her.
Oh,
Come on, man.
yes. And oh,
Yeah,
yes.
dude.
Okay, all right.
20,
I'm sorry.
25.
I didn't realize that was called I Wish.
Yeah, man. And and it's like this whole album was just a jam, doggone, yeah. Emotional. I Wish. And then here's the thing about this album. I think it's one of the last R&B albums we do with Grabbing for the Air. You know what I'm saying? They were singing in with the fan on with an open shirt and walking around with no shoes, you know what I'm saying? And people crying. Listen, I'll never forget the point of the video of I Wish when he drove by her house. He looked, us all coming out with her kids. He just has an
just looking.
Bruh, he playing you, man. Gum.
I do remember that video.
Yeah, so listen, so in honor of Carl Thomas, make sure y'all play the Emotional album. Summer Rain. Listen, man. We had a time in 2000 with this record, man. Doggone.
Is it wrong that the when I think of Carl Thomas, I think of The World Is Filled?
Nah, because that's a jam, though, dog. Listen. I've been around. He was killing some hooks. You know what I'm saying? Listen. You know, the Diddler knew what he was doing. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? He knew the fine, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Shout out to Carl Thomas. Listen, that's still one of my favorite albums. The most R&B. Woo, that's again. We're old because I was about to say that's when R&B was R&B, but it really was. You can't beat that one, straight up, man. So shout out to Carl Thomas. And lastly, before we get to Dr. Williams, so I hate to do this because I don't like being nice to these people, but shout out to the Brunch Besties. So two of the Brunch Besties, they wrote a book. I hate to, they get it. It's an inside joke, but the name of the book is called Now What? The Ultimate Job Loss Toolkit by Rhonda Williams and Renita Young. So if you guys have just lost a job, especially if you work for the federal government, you might need some help. I mean, all jokes aside, looking for a new job. So these two people, that's what I'll say, wrote a book about, again, Now What? The Ultimate Job Loss Toolkit. It has resources about, because, when you lose your job, people don't always know what to do, right? Especially being a person who's always worked and y'all jump from job to job. It's like when you lose a gig, that's a hard kind of like reset. You just don't even know what to do first. Do I go to unemployment? What's the job searching? That kind of thing. So this book is going to help you out with that. So you can find it on Amazon. Again, Now What? The Ultimate Job Loss Toolkit by Rhonda Williams and Renita Young. And I'm gonna go vomit. Inside joke. So got everything out there. And so we're going to introduce the one and only Dr. Williams all around the world with World. Today on the Super Duper podcast, we got your favorite guest, my favorite guest, and my big brother, the one and only, I should say, Dr. Dwayne Williams. What up with you, big bro?
I'm good, baby boy. How you doing, Rob?
I'm good, cool? Man. Listen. So I was going to have you on like in a month.
Okay, good.
You know what I mean? I was like, you know, well, you were on that, Black History Month. That's our standard,
cool.
Right?
Right. We got it.
But I mean, it's just a couple things been going on in the news. I can't think of it. Like what's just everything, to be honest, has been happening in the news lately. And I gotta say, what sparked my call to you is I got a buddy who's a diplomat. That's Light Flex. And he hit me with some news about how Secretary of State Rubio was revoking the visas of the South Sudanese.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then and he was like, his note was, Griggs, please do a podcast about this, just what's going on. And I was like, well, let me go ahead and call world. We can't wait. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you gotta go. You
May
gotta
can't do
go.
it.
Duty call. Duty
Yeah,
call.
man. So you're back on and you're here. And
Mhm.
it's just something because it feels like I was thinking today how before this, when a person became president, you kind of didn't hear about it like after the inauguration.
Right. Gotta
You
ease
know,
in.
it's like,
Yeah.
all right, we back to
A little
normal.
lull. Yeah.
Yeah. They golfing or they do, they
Yeah.
maybe sign a couple little things, and
Right.
it's been nonstop. But now the biggest thing I've been hearing, of course, and what I appreciate is that any negativity that happens now, they keep trying to blame Biden and Vice President Kamala's like, no.
You own this.
This all y'all. This all y'all.
All yours. All yours.
But before you get to your thoughts, man. So, we're big fans of AI. We call it Allen Iverson on the pod.
Me too.
AI.
Mm-hmm.
Big fans of AI. So shout out to Perplexity. I don't know if you ever heard of Perplexity. It's like a research assistant that's AI. So it gives you kind of when you ask it a question, it backs it up with like the links to the facts that you looking for. So I'm sure with the students you have to be careful of the AI that they're using.
Oh, trust me. I tell them we say use regular I. Don't you get to the AI. Once you develop your I, and then you can add an A to it. That's how you get an A. Start with the I. So I got a whole thing on AI. Don't get me started, man. Come on, get this promo. Come on, you gonna get me ran off the waves.
Shout out to Ez. He hate the AI. But so I asked Perplexity, I said, what are the top 7 polarizing issues of President Trump's current administration? So number one was immigration policies. Mm-hmm. 2 is economic management. 3 is the Project 2025. Mm-hmm. 4 cuts to federal programs. Mm-hmm. 5 is foreign policy. 6 is civil rights concerns. 7 is immigration system overhaul. Okay. And that pretty much sums up, right, what's going on. Now later on, I'll let you know the thoughts that we probably, because I asked Perplexity, what are the things we're not paying attention to in Trump's administration? We'll get to that later, man. But I'll let you go, man, to kind of give your thoughts on just about the last couple months of Trump and President Musk's administration.
Well, listen, this is what I'm going to say. No, they got you. They already got you. Don't worry about that. You've been got. So if you worry about being got, you're just done. Yeah. You're done. You're on the list, and they're going to get you. And don't worry about it. It's all good. Here's my history haiku. This is the fastest way and simplest way to tell you what's at stake. The same issues are at stake. Democracy is at stake. Citizenship at stake. And are focused on the narrative, right? All these things are about what I call not smoke and mirrors, but keeping people dazed and confused, right? And the best thing I can tell you are 2 things I would say about whether it's immigration, whether it's DEI, civil rights, whether it's tariffs. 2 things. One, this reminds me of Audre Lorde's quote, which is that to paraphrase her, I'll say that there can't be any community, right? There's no liberty, no freedom, no citizenship without community. And all of these moves are designed to create little tears in the community. People get nervous. Federal workers, listen, I live in a company town, all right? Our company town, our main work is federal workers, right? In what we call the DMV, District of Columbia, Maryland, Virginia, there are thousands of workers whose lives and whose communities have been strained by this, okay? Similarly, again, no freedom, no liberty, no citizenship without community. So the first thing, when I look at this list that Perplexity, my eye tells me, all right, not my artificial intelligence, my regular intelligence tells me that we have to ask ourselves, why is this person, why are these actions tearing at our community? Whether it is our immigrant communities, our communities that have, our Latino communities, all these communities are strained because you're seeing all these different demands put on them. Right? What's going to be your focus? Is it going to be that we're, quote unquote, protecting the borders? Who are we protecting the borders from? Who's posing a threat to the borders? Right? Big and small. When we look at the borders outside of our own country, right? Tariffs are about borders, about the economic boundaries and borders that we have. Tariffs, taxes, borders are about community. You're either in that community or not. Okay? And ultimately, at the end of the day, to me, what makes our country great, but also problematic is some of us actually believe in this idea that you cultivate liberty, you cultivate citizenship, you cultivate freedom, and by that, you strengthen communities by doing those things. Every one of these moves is about undermining the confidence that we have in who we are, what we do, Are we USAID workers? Are we immigrants who are going to be valued? Are we going to question, allow the ongoing conversations about questioning the excellence of people who are of color, right? So diversity, equity, and inclusion, what does that mean, right? So even if you use those phrases and you kind of, try to devalue them, at the end of the day, you're saying that there are some members of the community who should be devalued, and you should be okay with that, no matter where it comes from, no matter how valid it is. So all these lists to me are about how we get access to resources in our community, in our society, how we either strengthen people's confidence in our community, in our society. And here's the thing. We don't live in Kazakhstan. I'm sure the people of Kazakhstan are great. We don't live in Bulgaria. We don't live in Burma. What makes the United States great is we have this unique set of things in which we take ideas like liberty, citizenship, and freedom very seriously. And we're not threatened by the fact that there might be ideas that coexist, right? That may be in opposition to each other. That's actually what makes us great. There's a space we can do that. And what's happened now is that community space has been shrank. Right? We attack communities. I heard someone say, well, why are they attacking Columbia and Harvard and other places? And someone said, well, universities are one of the few places that people will tell you no or tell you that you're wrong. And in the private sector, if you tell your boss you're wrong, it actually has consequences. You can actually be fired or demoted or denied. But in the public space, in universities, what makes them great it's a place where the community values the diversity of opinions, of ideas, of human experiences. And what's happened now is that anything that threatens that reinforces that, is seen as a threat by the people who are currently in the White House. They're threatened by this idea of community. They're actually threatened by freedom and liberty. They co-opt the language of those things, but actually they're threatened by it. And so that's what this list is about. This is about how fearful are you? And one way you can tear people apart are touch their livelihood. If I'm a federal worker and I'm at HUD or I'm at one of these other institutions, I'm at the Department of Education, I'm worried about when I can pay my rent. So I'm not going to focus on these other issues. I mean, I don't know if that makes sense to you, but for me, again, our Lord challenges us. If you want freedom, if you want liberty, if you want to cultivate community, they have to all coexist. And anything that undermines that calls into question how serious people are about those things.
Yeah. When you first came on the pod like years ago, one thing you talked about was the attack on information and just how that's being misused. Because even to the point you're making right now, another way to divide the community is like you have all these people, as I see it on Instagram, where like some people are going, well, what Trump is doing is actually right. It's like, word. Because one lady was like, yeah, we need to dismantle the Department of Education. It's only 7%. So again, I went to Perplexity to be like, okay,
do your research.
What does it do? And so 7% are billions of dollars.
Right.
No longer. And it's like, that's a lot of people, when you hear that kind of thing about billions of dollars being used,
right,
not being taken away, they frame it as 7%. It's not a lie. It's not that big a deal. What you're worried about. No.
Yeah.
Those billions of dollars go a long way. And especially for somebody like me who has children with diverse and other parents with disabled, like that can be the cost of a program now being eradicated.
Programs. It's
programs,
plural.
Right?
Programs, right?
And,
any one of us,
thing.
yeah.
And see, people think, oh no, because again, that's the part that blows me, world, is that we got these smart people who like to zag.
Right.
They like, no, he actually on to something. Y'all just don't know until your programs get cut, the one you need.
So, Right. And here's the thing. Everybody's going to be affected by that, right? It isn't that it's some places or some people are going to be affected. What you have to understand is this. Every one of those moves is based on the idea that less government is good and more government is bad, right? That's a philosophical argument that so-called liberals and so-called conservatives have. But as someone who is seriously progressive, right, not just using the language of progressives, I know this about access to resources. It isn't about the role of government. It's about who gets access to resources, who consistently gets it, who have historically got access to, whether it's capital and banking and housing or education opportunities. Those of us who have children or support children in our community who are diverse learners, who get access to those resources, the best hearing specialists, the best speech specialists. When you're tearing down these departments, you're saying, I'm going to decide who gets access to resources, and I'm okay if some people don't get it. Okay, and you can put forth 7%. You can say, hey, the federal government doesn't really do that much in education, for example. Most of the things are funded by the state, but they play a very important role in setting the standard about what's acceptable, about setting the standard about who gets access to even student loans. We talk a lot about student loan forgiveness, but guess what? Many of us, myself included, could have never gone and got access to elite education had there not been the Department of Education. Where would I have gotten those resources from? Okay, so it's consequential. And the point I'm trying to make is this. Every one of the moves by the current occupant of the White House is designed to, again, have a chilling effect on people's confidence in the ability of government to actually function. And what's funny about that, of course, and what's ironic and hypocritical about it is that they're going to try to destroy those institutions and then say, see, they don't work. This is what it is. It's not about waste and about mismanagement. It's about confidence, right? Americans have a right to be skeptical. We have the absolute right to question things about what our government is doing. But we're questioning it with the intention of making it better, not destroying it. Donald Trump is raising questions which destroy people's confidence, right? That somehow the Department of HUD or USAID or Department of Ed there's so much waste, we're trying to save the country by destroying it. It doesn't stand, it's what I call flat earth logic. There's nothing about it that's valid, but some people say, you know what, the earth is flat. Even though I can prove to you that earth is not flat, it doesn't matter if you hear so much in the social media that maybe there's 8% or 20% of people say the earth is flat. Now we know the earth is not flat, but there's a large percentage of people who might buy into that idea. The same is true for these issues about Trumpism. So some people dismiss them. I don't dismiss them because I'm going to go back to one of our earlier conversations. Every move that's being made, our moves, we had a blueprint for it, right? We got Project 2025. These are long-standing conversations about whether the Department of Ed, the USAID, or any part of the executive branch of government, they've been trying to lessen and diminish them for many years. The only thing that's happening now is they're executing the plan. What stupefies me is that people are acting like they're surprised. How can you be surprised? If I give you the playbook and I run my plays, and you have the playbook, you should prepare for how you want to defend against those things. Not tell me I'm shocked or look shocked at the response, right? So people mention the Project 2025, but every one of those moves and the people who have either shaped or defined, the current president's thinking about these kind of different policy suggestions, they've all been made plain. They've been made bare. If you go back to our earlier conversations, others argue, this person's a threat to democracy. This is what it looks like. It isn't the boogeyman. It's not a boogeyman. It's an actual real man who's doing real things that impact our country. And you got to ask yourself, what's going to be your response? Not, I'm shell-shocked. You shouldn't be shell-shocked, all right? I think that we should be intentional. And I've been telling people this for a long time. To have convictions, you need to have courage, okay? And to have courage, you need to have something that you feel you have convictions about, right? What's the price you want to pay for the country you want to have, all right, as the saying goes? But I see small things like the attempt to erase African-American history here in the Capitol. When you see things like Black Lives Matter needing to be renamed, people say, oh, that's no big deal. It is a big deal because we started with that. And then what do? We went to the Smithsonian, we went to the African American History Museum. We went to saying, you know what, that lady Harriet Tubman, she was just a chick. She was just a chick that did some things. She wasn't really that big of a deal. And that might make you feel big, but the reality is that all those transformative people, those African American women, those people who fought for civil rights, Black, white, and brown and others, right? They're transforming the society to make the community better. And if you erase those narratives, then you don't have a way for younger people or those who are uninformed to figure out how do we create this great country. It wasn't by making the moves we're making now. So I'll go back to my thing about community. Community isn't a mythical thing, okay? Community is something that's contested, that can be shaped and defined by many people within the realm. But if you destroy things, if you destroy the history behind it, the narrative behind it, if you simply put this tremendous amount of political pressure to deny things that are actually true, right? When you say, you know what, we should probably erase Jackie Robinson from the narrative. Now, that seems crazy to me and you, but there are people who don't know how transformative Jackie Robinson was before he actually went into baseball. They didn't know he was a lieutenant. They don't know that he challenged segregation when he was on campus, when he always got court-martialed. That part of Jackie Robinson, the citizen, is the one we actually need to be teaching about. You want to talk about a patriot? The things the guy did before he became 42 for the Brooklyn Dodgers, he was transformative then. Okay, but if you don't know those things, if you can't go to a public space and discuss them, then you don't have the keys to get into the community. And you need the keys to get into the community. That might be a job as a scientist at the NIH. It might be as a park ranger at the Harriet Tubman Museum. We all need keys to get into the community. And these are attempts to deny keys. We're going to deny people. We're going to label them. We're going to call people gang members. I know you can appreciate this. For example, hey, I wear lots of Chicago Bulls gear. So you're telling me that I'm part of MS-13 now? If that's the case, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. Okay? A lot of trouble. All right, we're going to. The Bulls haven't said anything about it, but we all know that people around the world rock that red and black. Okay, yeah. Are there people who are maybe nefarious who do it? Yes, but most don't. But when you can associate those things, I'll go back to my point. You're saying that people have access to the community. If you get inside of the community and you get access to the resources. But if you never get inside the community, then you can't talk about policy. Tariffs don't make any much sense if you're not a part of that conversation. You see? Yeah. So all this is about those kinds of issues. They're about, again, who gets access, who gets labeled. And communities and people who are in key places within our government are now on their heels. And the question for me is, it's time for a lot more courage. We can play this out. We can see how this is going to go. And each week there's going to be some new phantasmagorical move that's made, but they're all aimed to destabilize. And so at this point, we've reached the point where collectively, those of us who disagree with this approach need to have a counter response, need to be very intentional. And I've been saying, hey, I will organize, galvanize myself to challenge anything that tries to reshape the narrative about the relationship between African Americans and others in U.S. history. When I saw that, that's my tipping point. Okay, that's my area. So I know lots about tariffs, but maybe that's not the area I'm going to fight in. But I'm going to fight for that contested terrain around the narrative of this country. That's the thing that I do. And you can't let that go. And that's everything from, again, Black Lives Matters to the museums, to saying, hey, listen, we're going to take over the institutions. I mean, J.D. Vance has basically positioned himself to say, you know what? I'm in the Smithsonian, and the person who was running the African American History Museum basically was fired because he wasn't prepared to actually follow through on those things, to allow those narratives to be changed, right? So, excuse me, most people, for instance, may never go to the African American History Museum. They might not visit it. But I can tell you this, the stories that come out of there permeate all throughout the country. So it does matter what the narrative is. And if people grow up saying that, hey, again, Martin Luther King was just a guy, he was a minister, he wasn't challenging the fundamental things in our country, that's a problem, all right? Final point. Today I started a lesson with a group of 8th graders. And the question was this: what was the cause of the Civil War and what was at stake? And I started out by telling them this: there are many causes, and we had a list of causes that were on the board. But the fundamental cause of the Civil War was slavery. And I said, I've been saying that for years. It wasn't the only cause, but it was the fundamental cause. It might have started out preserving the Union, but ultimately it was about how do we resolve the question we never resolved as a country, which is what we're going to do about this thing with slavery. Well, guess what? We had a war, it lasted 4 years, 700,000 people were killed. And at the end of that war, we had the 13th Amendment that ended slavery. But the one that we're talking about today, and it's what I told the students, in 2025, we're talking about the 14th Amendment, which is about citizenship and equal protection. That comes out of the Civil War. And you got to realize that the reason we have the 14th Amendment is we have to have a way to define citizenship for those 4 million people who had formerly been enslaved. So it isn't that the 14th Amendment or Civil War is something that happened back in 1865. It's happening today because guess what? If those 4 million people don't have a way to be defined as citizenship, here we go, Rob, they don't get access to the community, okay? If you don't have courage to your conviction, okay? You don't have courage, you have no convictions. You have no convictions, you won't have a reason to have courage. And that's the thing that happens. And those things, the reason we muster up our courage, the reason we do those things and we have convictions is because we actually want a particular kind of community. It's the old school Dr. King, the beloved community. It isn't mythical. It isn't just spiritual. It's a real thing. It's a lived thing. And everything that Donald Trump is doing is saying, I don't like those lived things. I'm going to look at you and me and say, you went to Williams, and the reason you went to Williams, you got in there, is because you were a DEI admission when you went to St. Ignatius. And I went to McAllister, and I'm a DEI because I went to McAllister. That's nonsense. The body of work doesn't support that. And their argument, for instance, would make a lot more sense to me if the people they had were the most highly qualified people who had their own political views. If I look at their cabinet, I'm saying there are other people who might agree with Donald Trump, but they aren't the best of the best. Those aren't the best of the best Trumpanistas. Those are just some guys willing to concede their humanity, their integrity, to have access to power. That's pretty typical, you know? So again, stay with the theme of community. Don't give it up, right? Don't get distracted by the latest thing that comes out of the Supreme Court or the latest department that's having downsides. Ask yourself, why are they doing that? Who gets access, who doesn't, who's being punished, and why are they doing this? And what's the result? And our ongoing narrative has always been, you and I may not have that much confidence in Donald Trump, but there are lots of people who at least for a moment had confidence in him. I don't know if they have confidence after this current stock market, but before the stock market downturn, people were saying, you know, he's designed to shake things up, and he's shaking it up.
No, that Robin Hood account ain't looking good. They a little upset right now, man.
Listen, Robin Hood is more like robbing Hood. Okay,
Facts.
It's not a Robin Hood; it's robbing the hood. Okay.
Yes. You are listening to the Super Duper podcast. Make sure to follow us on all socials at SUPA DUPA POD. What up, Sarah? So this is the question I've been wanting to ask you.
Okay.
Because, and it's more specific about the economy, but it has a historical perspective. Because I even saw that a couple of days ago, Trump kind of made this comment about, listen, it's all going to work. You even talked about the economy and Robin Hood and everything. He's like, and he said these words, well, trust me, once we get it fixed up here, it's all going to trickle down to everyone. Now, I was born 79, right before Reagan became president, and it trickled down economics. All I know is my parents hate that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
with good reason.
I haven't studied at great length. I just know everybody who was an adult in that area hate that man because it's like you had this economic strategy, right, that pretty much put people in ruins. It helped people get rich, but the people who said it was going to help never touched that money. And and literally that's what, you know, Trump is saying. That's what we're trying to do again. So from a historical perspective, it feels like history is repeating itself, but it's more venomous this time, right? It feels like that. And again, you let me know. I'm just more talking.
No,
it feels like that was just more economic. It's like we got this great idea. We know it's a hustle. It might help y'all, but this is more like, no, I ain't trying to help y'all. But this is, I just got to say something that'll get y'all off my back. What's your thoughts?
My thoughts are really simple. Listen, there are no new ideas. There are variations on the same thing. So trickle-down theory, bootstrap, the idea that if you lower taxes, what will happen is that those who have access to capital will suddenly start spending and it will stir the economy. These are old conservative tropes. What we have now are kind of not particularly creative economic policies that have been put forward by someone who now has the political support, will, interest to implement things that he knows won't trickle down to those who are needed, right? But I would also say this: there are many people who may support the current president who don't really care about his economic policies, because if they did, they would have never voted for him, because his economic policies are not aligned with many of those working class whites or Latinos or Black people who voted for the president. So this isn't an ideological argument. This is more a philosophical argument. I like this person because he's doing things that I wish I could do, or he's, upending old norms, and I like that and I wish I would do it. But from an economic standpoint, a pure economic standpoint, it's a failed policy. Reaganomics was a failed policy. It did the very things that conservatives said they didn't want. Sure. It raised debt. Okay. The policies that were put in place didn't achieve the outcomes that they want. So the thing is, like in sports, like in music, like in arts, like in life, you are your record. We don't have to make it up. We can look and ask ourselves, who prospered? When we look at the gap, okay, in terms of wages and growth of income, we can see that the top 1/10 of 1%, or the 1%ers, as people like to say now, we know those people benefit when tax policies are shaped and defined in the ways that they did. And we also know that in those people those of us who may be living paycheck to paycheck or who are struggling, things didn't get better. Not because I dislike Ronald Reagan. I disagree with him politically and philosophically. But if his policy had worked, I would be prepared to admit that. But what I'm having a problem with is that the opposite side is not prepared to admit that the policies that they are proposing now and have historically proposed don't work for the majority of Americans, right? So there might be a different way that those of us who disagree with Donald Trump need to package it. But at the end of the day, just show this is what the Trump tax policy did for some people, and this is what it did for you. Staying on that message would really, to me, undermine this ongoing argument that, hey, just wait, take your lumps, and then you're going to see that happy days are here. So I was supposed to lower the price of eggs, and I was supposed to do all these things, but now I'm asking you to wait, and you're going to have to pay more for all the things that you couldn't afford when I didn't put those policies in place, right? Tariffs are a tax, all right? Tariffs are a tax that are paid by consumers. And by the very definition of tariffs being a tax, it means that the people who are less able to pay them will have more difficulty paying 20% more for any particular thing, right? Whether that's goods, that's food, that's clothing, that's cars. At the end of the day, a tariff will raise the price on the goods that most of us have to pay, and our wages aren't matching those tariffs, right? So whether it's a 10% across the board, whether it's 54% for China, whether it's 48% for Vietnam, ultimately, remember, what fuels our economy is consumer spending. But if you have to spend more, you have to pay more for stuff, you're going to spend less overall. Your resources don't grow in those ways. So, and how long is it going to take? So if it takes more than 4 years, was it worth investing in the Trump policies around tariff if you might not know for sure how it's going to impact you over 4 years? But there's nothing in the economic history of our country which says that the current policies will get the results that will qualitatively improve the day-to-day lives of most Americans. There are people who will benefit, but none of those people are likely to be listeners of this podcast. That's what I'm going to tell you. Yeah. Highly unlikely.
You know, it's always something about life, how, like, you know, when you're doing well in life, you don't see how, like, these programs benefit people because you're straight, right? You're like, I'm fine, my money be
my needs are met.
But it's like when you are down, they show you to understand, like, you know, if you didn't have a job or something was up, these benefits or this little check or that program or this free thing helped me get back into this and now build into the economy, you know. And I just always, you know, people always need to work in retail and work with the public, and people always need to experience a little time of just being down just a bit, because you know.
Let me give you a good example.
Really works. Yeah,
I'll give a really good example. Wait until hurricane season starts. Wait until those people who are going to say, I supported the president. Again, philosophically, you support the president, but in your lived experiences, when your house has been blown down and destroyed, when roads in your let me say it again, what's my thing for the night, Rob? Community. When your community has been destroyed by natural disasters and you don't have the capacity and the government doesn't have the capacity to respond, you don't care who president is, right? And if you're down, what you need is your family to be okay, your neighbors to be okay. And I'm going to tell you, we're going to have many more conversations. I promise you, unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong, but I know I'm going to be right. People are going to be less well because, again, our confidence in the government, our ability to support and sustain and protect our communities, we're going to be less able to do that in 2025. And you're going to see that those people who may have been enthusiastic in their political support, they're going to suffer when those hurricanes, floods, tornadoes impact the country, fires. Okay, we're going to see that people aren't going to be that particularly excited about the chances of having success or their lives improving. And the pace of that would be very slow. We just don't have the human capital, the labor that we need to be as responsive to the shifting changes in people's lives. Because people need immediate response. You can't tell someone, I'll rebuild your house in 18 months or 24 months.
Yeah.
What are you going to do in the meantime?
Sure.
Right? So people feel that. Or you go to a program at a school and they say, hey, look, we don't have that program anymore. Your child's going to have to tough it out. Right?
Yeah.
So you're going to feel it in different ways. And there's a delay. And I promise you, by the time we get to the midterm elections,
it's going to be everybody will be touched.
The body of work is going to be there. And you're going to have to be able to say, it wasn't Joe Biden who did that.
So listen, he started talking about Biden the other day. I said, hey, kill that. Hey, he this all you, Playboy. For real.
Right.
So now it's funny you talked about the hurricane, because remember I told you I asked Perplexity that one question, but then I asked the mirror of the question. What are some issues due to Trump's current administration that are not getting the most attention? And number one was the proposed elimination of FEMA.
Right.
Excuse me.
No, I did not know that. See?
Yeah. And it's like, then also two, defunding environmental protections. Figures on the regulations, halted plans to limit toxic PFAs in drinking water. 3 was expanded federal executions.
Sorry about that. I hope I don't lose you. Okay. Yeah.
4 is to crack down on academic freedom. As we talked about the universities. Some of the freest places. Reduced foreign aid, technical immigration changes, media restrictions. I listened to a podcast called The Town. And they were even talking about just how like it's changing, not just Hollywood, but like they have people in place in all of these media spaces, and like Trump is really trying to affect what media does, what gets made, and it's like, why is your hand in all this stuff, sir?
Because I gotta control the narrative. Because at the end of the day, I have the apparatus to do it. I mean, even the ongoing debate about AP. I saw a story about how the Supreme Court or some court said, hey, look, you can't punish the Associated Press because they won't call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Like that's an infringement on the First Amendment. Like at the end of the day, the press plays an important role. We can disagree and debate about that. But again, remember, I see the major media outlets, I see newspapers capitulating in ways that are unnecessary. There's nothing that says that you capitulate to this particular approach, this threat to law firms, threat to the press. You're not getting anything in it. Like again, Donald Trump isn't going to suddenly become a different person, because he's the kind of bully that if he sees that you are weak and you yield to him in any way, he's going to ask for more and give you less. Right? You resist because at the end of the day, resistance may not get you victory, but it won't get you total and utter defeat and humiliation. Because we know that's part of his brand. I'm going to control you. I'm going to threaten you. And I'm going to humiliate you. And once I've humiliated you publicly, individually, look, you're done. Look at Marco Rubio. I mean, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, it came at a cost. Look at Ted Cruz. Look at the people who fall in line. They've gotten nothing for that, right? I didn't forget it. You didn't forget it. But at the end of the day, they paid a terrible cost for that. They got nothing. They're not getting more power. They're not influencing the outcomes of policy. Donald Trump does not feel in any way that he needs to listen to anyone above himself. No one, okay? It doesn't make a difference how nonsensical it is. It doesn't make a difference, for instance, since the War of 1812, Americans have been talking about somehow trying to get Canada. That ship has sailed. And you're talking about making Canada the 51st state or involving Greenland. Those things would be farcical if they weren't so utterly dangerous, because we actually know that there are people who will implement or attempt to implement policies that don't make sense, because at the end of the day, they've been co-opted by Donald Trump. They've ceded a part of themselves, politically, socially, and otherwise, to be at his beck and call. That's what the press that has done that, they get rewarded. I would argue, for instance, that MSNBC, for instance, fired one of their,
right?
They fired because at the end of the day, she was a vehement critic And there were lots of people who were critics of Trump, but Trump decided that's the person that I wanted. I'm not going to have that black woman talk bad about me every night. And she's not going to have a vehicle to do it. It's a small price to pay. Maybe your salary is, high or mid 6, 7, 8 figures. Guess what? But access to the president is more powerful. Somebody's head has to roll. Okay? We need a sacrifice. We need a John the Baptist. And that's what happened with Joy Reid, right? Because those media outlets are saying, well, we might disagree and we're skeptical. Here's the reality. We need access. We want to have stories. We have things we have to sell. We have advertisement we have to have eyes on. And if people don't come because we've been isolated, maybe we do something different. Maybe we're not as hard. Maybe we're not as sharp. That's not true just for MSNBC, CNN, and all those other particular media outlets. And those who are challenging get marginalized. The AP is getting marginalized because they're like, we're going to put you either not in the press room or not give you access to it. So when you look at environment, FEMA, academia, okay, all those are saying, what are the places that I either feel threatened as the president or I feel can raise questions that make me feel uncomfortable? The media will definitely do that.
Yeah.
Right? The media will do it. Universities will do it. And sooner or later, FEMA and the environment are going to come back to bite you. Because here's the thing. As much as Donald Trump thinks he's in control, Mother Nature is undefeated. She's going to have hurricanes where she wants them. Ask the people in Kentucky. Kentucky went strongly for Trump. It has nothing to do with those floods that are down there that are threatening Frankfurt, Lexington, and Louisville. Nothing.
And listen, Pete, I saw listen to a podcast up first, and they saw NPR, and they kind of give you the 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And they've been talking here and there about this measles outbreak in Texas. I'm like, hey, man, how come nobody ain't talking about this more? Because again, will end up in a thing because they've reduced all these protections and we don't need vaccines for this and that. And it was a doctor saying, listen, don't listen to what them boys saying. For this here, that vaccine work.
That vaccine, listen.
But it's something that's like, a couple kids have already died and Trump has been like, yeah, we'll hear about it. And that's what I'm saying. We talk a lot about sirens on the pod, just listening to things that pop up that like go, that's weird. And then next thing you know, in 6 months, it's a thing, right? So it's like something like that, rather to your point.
Right. Well, it's like we just say in graduate school. You listen for what people say, but if you want insights, listen for the silences. Okay? Listen for the silences. I spend a lot of time interviewing people. I spend a lot of time, we're going to come back to South Africa in a minute. I spend a lot of times talking with white South Africans about their vision of the future 20 years ago. And my greatest inference and insights came from the things they didn't say. All right. Hey, we're multiracial democracy. We all like Nelson Mandela, but then sooner or later it would pivot back to ultimately, these black people are incompetent. Okay. All right. Ultimately, we got some concerns. We want to be able to protect our land. We want to be able to protect our way of life. And we don't know if we want to give that up. So it matters what people say. Of course, it matters what people do. But the other thing is, what don't they say? And it's hard to listen for the silences now in a way that wasn't true 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. People are either inundated by information and they don't know how to glean the silences. All right. Because you get so much information on your phone and, all these different platforms. But listening for the silences can tell you, like, again, you went back to what AI told you. The issue around public health is not just measles. It's the broader conversation. All right. When you talk about that they have shut down these efforts at I think it's the NIH around, around artificial, what's it called? Different kinds of birth, like getting access to reproductive health, right? Sure. Right. So IVF. So when you hear those types of things, you gotta ask yourself, why aren't they talking about those things? Because the measles is the kind of canary in a coal mine around the larger conversation about public health and about whether you raise skepticism about it. And again, trust about it. Who in those Texas, watch me, who in the Texas communities are raising questions about who gets vaccinated? All right. You're talking about 86% vaccination rate. When we know that this is a 99% effective vaccine, Nobody wants to be the person who says that a parent made a bad choice that cost their child a life. But when if I know that something's going to happen to you, and I see you going to get hit by a car, I either let you get hit by the car, or I at least yell out, "Hey, look out! Get out on the road!" Right? The measles is a larger conversation about public health. Okay, that's really what it's about. So don't just ask about measles. Ask broadly about why do we allow this conversation, these efforts to undermine confidence about public health. How does it impact our community? Why do we let people do that? Why would we let a child in Texas be vulnerable? Yes, parents have a right to make choices about their family and about their children. Absolutely. But again, your individual rights always have to coexist and be reconciled with the general public good. Okay? And there's a public good to vaccines. And you have to say to yourself, if a parent says, I'm aware that I believe and accept that vaccines are effective, but I also have some concerns, and I'm going to, not let my child have that vaccine, but I'm also not going to expose them to the public where they might get exposed to measles, because I don't want anything to happen to my child. I don't think for 1 minute that the tragic loss of those particular children was because the parents want their kids to be killed. I don't believe that. I don't believe that kind of craziness. But I do believe that when you privilege individual rights over public good, this is a consequence. And that's a conversation we should be having in our community. We should be asking the questions about how good are tariffs, how good is education, how good is public health, what is the balance that's going to best serve the larger American public, and not just the individual, egotistical, idiosyncratic needs of the current president. That's not good for the country. That's why I'm having a problem with it.
I know the theme of the year has been positive rage, and I think that's still consistent. That's been keeping me going, man. And I think if there's any good that comes of this, it's a couple of things. I see it's more like we are being more creative about how we can help one another in spite of what. Like, and I want to shout out to my church and my pastor, Pastor Charlie, Pastor.
Oh, that was great. Yeah,
giving out the eggs right to the community. You know what I'm saying? That was awesome. And just they're doing a spin in the black on 75th Street, shutting down all black, doing that kind of thing. Right, guys?
I love that.
And and the boys are learning about the Constitution.
Yes.
And I gotta say, when I learned about it, you have a cursory knowledge of it all. But like now it's like I'm studying with them, right? You know
exactly.
what I'm saying?
To make sure I remind myself what I like. Yeah.
And it's
reinforcing it.
And it's like, it's like, I don't want y'all to just like get through this test. We understand, like we're talking about it a lot.
Yeah.
Like, we really are discussing what this means now because it's so important. And I feel like, for the longest time, like we talked about in the beginning, we've kind of coasted through a lot of these presidential elections. Like, okay, we up about it. Cool, okay.
Right.
But now, my parents, you've known them longer than I have.
Hey.
They watch Mama a day does not pass when she say, "You okay?" You watch the news? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Did you see that thing
that's
on
next
TV?
Question.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, just always encouraging people to, it's all this is bad, right? But I think that it forces us to be more creative about how we can help each other and not just help each other just to get by, but also to thrive, because we can do that in this economy and even in this administration, and I'm sure you feel the same, man.
I do. Listen, I don't think I tell people this all the time. There's no defeat that is total and complete. There's no victory that's permanent. If you understand those two things, then again, the whole adjective, this too shall pass, is relevant, right? I think the issue is not whether it passes, but whether we can sustain ourselves in the face of what we have to encounter. The policies that are being implemented are they're true, they're consequential for people's individual and collective lives. But it is really, really important to understand that, the idea that there's this all-encompassing, we can't, fight or resist, or that we shouldn't respond, that all hope should be given up. I don't believe in that kind of stuff. And what I always tell people is that nothing's gained from acquiescence. There's nothing that gains from it, right? There's a lot to be gained from resisting and being strategic about your resistance and being intentional about it. It's the strategic and intentionality of the response that concerns me. It's the capitulation that troubles me, right? And so the way I deal with that is I'm going to give you the information and give you reasons not to capitulate and not to acquiesce. And they're not going to be pie in the sky, and they're not going to be kind of just focusing on the negative, right? I believe that the way you transform the world is always through hope, right? Remember, positive rage isn't destructive. It's galvanizing. It requires you to say, not that I'm mad. I'm so mad and I'm so concerned that I'm going to act. I'm going to sit with my son. I'm going to talk about the 3 branches of government. I'm going to remind my son, I'm going to remind my daughter that we have 3 co-equal branches of government and that one is dominating and that that's inconsistent with how we structure the government. That Madisonian democracy requires 3 branches of government and that it doesn't say that the president is more important. You may not know who the Supreme Court is or who the House Speaker is, but you need to understand that we have 3 co-equal branches and it's designed to be muddy. What happens when you muddy it up is that you slow the roll of tyrants, okay? And when you let somebody dominate our system, it's inconsistent with who we are. Guess what? That conversation with your children is a way to thwart, the efforts that are made by the president, right? Because your son, your daughter, the triplets are going to be kids who are going to say, wait a minute, that's not how, when I was talking to my dad, that's not how it should work. Something's wrong here. And so I should expect more and demand more from my country, from my citizens, from my parents. And by the way, shout out to my hometown mayor, who's been very clear. The city of Chicago, we know how to roll. See, I don't care what you say. I'm a Chicago. I know I'm here in this area. I'm a Chicago. Okay. My mayor has responded. Okay. So I think you got to realize that it's not just let's be hopeful. Let's have our head down. Look, we're from the Judeo-Christian tradition. We got Palm Sunday. We got Easter coming up. We got reasons to always be hopeful because we always got to be hopeful. And I tell people this story all the time, and I may have said it to you before. I don't go to church on Easter because I don't know the story. I do know the story. Yeah. I go to church on Easter because the story bears repeating. Okay, that's why I'm going. I get it. Jesus is powerful. Judeo-Christian tradition is powerful. All those kind of things are great. But the reason that I go to church is because I need to be reminded on Easter that there is a narrative that is more powerful than my doubts, okay? And that there is a way of transforming that isn't mythical and magical thinking. It's real lived history and requires something of me, okay? That whether you're a historian like me, whether you are, any citizen can be transformative because we can just sit down with our kids and tell them, guess what? This is Madisonian democracy. This is how branches of government work. This is what we're going to do about it. We're going to have this conversation. We're going to read. We're going to go. We're going to do something. But here's the thing we're not going to do. We're not going to stand there and get ran over by a car and not make any moves. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to let anybody else go into the middle of the street and not yell out danger. Right? We're going to call it what it is. That's how transformation works. It isn't like suddenly there's this groundswell and then the whole world changes. It's the little small steps. It's those things, those silences that we listen for, and those intentional choices we make in our lives to protect and defend our community. Okay? Courage and conviction, they go together, and they still always require us to do something. We have to do something. And I think that's why I like having our conversation. We're talking about how to do stuff, we got a lot of work to do. So be mad, but act on that anger, okay? Point it in the direction toward the challenge.
Yeah. So, next time we do this on Signal.
Okay. All right. Oh, God, that's fun. That's fun. You know what?
Had to.
Okay, we're going to do it, and, we're going to coordinate. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to leak our conversation to the writer that is at the Atlantic. Say, listen, check it out.
I don't know who this guy is, but let's talk about his top tier stuff.
This thing came across a random thing that came across my thing. I'm sure people have tried it. We're gonna try it too.
Absolutely. So, you gotta leave us with some books, man. What you got?
All right, I got 2 books, and you're gonna love them. Okay.
All right.
And look, someone stole my book, so I got to give you the title. One is an absolutely new, great novel called Happy Land by Dolene Perkins Valdez. A great story. Listen, Rob, this is a story that's based on truth. It's a historical fiction. And it's based on the fact that there were a group of African Americans who moved from South Carolina right after the end of the Civil War, and they moved and set up a community. They bought 200 acres, and they set up. They had someone who had donated as a king and a queen. 200 acres. They sat and they had this community that sustained itself from the end of the Civil War up to about 1915. Okay, and Happy Land is a novel that kind of it fictionalizes, but it really is rooted in the real historical records. You gotta see this novel, man. Somebody stole it from me. I got it, and I gave it away because it was so good. I was raving it. Well, can I have it? You know me, of course. I gave the book away. Happy Land by Dolene Perkins Valdez.
Okay,
you gotta have that one. Second, Imani Perry, the great scholar and critic out of Princeton. You can pick up any of her books, but the one that I'm reading, the one I'm kind of pushing for now, is called Black and Blues: How a Color Tells the Story of My People. Okay, that one is great. It riffs all on, how the blues is a metaphor for a broader conversation about who we collectively are, and of course who we are as African Americans, right? And it reinforces and validates all those affirming things. This, unquestionable right to be free, this unquestionable right to be human, to express our stories. Both of these books do that. One, I'm telling you, man, Happy Land is my kind of book that's got me excited again, because you can go in this negative space, and Happy Land says, wait a minute. Again, in the midst of Reconstruction, a group of African Americans says, we're going to create the community that we want and live in the ways that we want to. Not necessarily kind of away from people, but we're going to create our own space. Again, we're going to create our own community. Okay. Yes, Happy Land's about community. Wow. Okay. Wow. And so if you get a hold of that novel, and again, all stuff you got to do, I always tell you, open the book up, start it. I don't care if you get through it. Open the book up. The first 2 chapters, the first part of the book will make you happy. It's a powerful story, legacy, community, and about the idea that in the face of all these differences, people were intentional about creating space where they could be the best and fullest self. And it's, again, I love the fact that this would have been a great novel if it had been imaginary. It's an even better novel because it's rooted in, again, this space in North Carolina and South Carolina where people created these spaces where they existed and they had a community, and that community really did a great job of sustaining itself, and I think that there's a lot to be said about this. There's a lot of rich literature on that. Most of the stuff is utopian. This isn't utopian. This is just what we did. We knew what we were doing and we did it. And I think Imani Perry's book is really about one of the, while people love hip hop, I love hip hop, I love jazz, but you got to start with the blues, man. You want to tell the story? Start with the blues.
So Happy Land, Dorleen Perkins Valdez, and Black and Blues: How a Color Tells the Story of My People.
By Imani Perry.
Imani Perry. Got you.
Yeah. Listen, those two.
Once we get to a way we can kind of just start talking about stuff that ain't, about to kill us in the world. We talk about Reconstruction. I'm telling you, that's a period of time people don't think about enough, man.
Listen, that's Reconstruction. Don't get me started. I think, look, I love Henry Louis Gates did a good thing on it. There's a lot of stuff to be done. Sorry about that. There's a lot of good work done on Reconstruction, but it's stuff that needs to be, it's like Easter. It needs to be repeated. It bears repeating. It's not so much new news. There's been tremendous scholarship on Reconstruction, and people just needs to be exposed to it. My late father once called me up in the middle of school, and he says to me, "Hey, I'm looking at this thing on TV. Can you talk to me about Reconstruction in 5 minutes?" And I said, "Pop, it's not a 5-minute conversation." Okay, Pop, Reconstruction is not a 5-minute conversation. He goes, I know, but I need you to just give me the highlights in 5 minutes, right? And that 5-minute conversation was 2 hours, of course, this is my pop. Sure. But it was just great that he said, I'm looking at this, I gotta know more about this Reconstruction.
He knew to call you.
Yeah. He knew he picked up the phone to call me. And I said, okay, Daddy, it's 5 minutes.
I'm gonna let you go, but man, that's like how my pops used to do. When he would go when it was Super Bowl time, he'd be going out with his he go, son, who playing tonight? So he would, Dad don't watch football enough.
Right.
I would say, all right, this the teams is playing. This is who should win. Okay,
right.
This is the reasons why. Thanks. And he leave.
Stay right there. Keep the conversation right there.
They trust their sons, man. For real.
That's good. Yeah, thank God for that, man.
Absolutely.
Hey, look, let's continue our larger conversation. I love this. I think we got a lot we got to do. Yes, and look, I think it's a challenge for both of us. Look, we have an affirmative obligation because of the opportunities we have to share the things we know. Let's use every means to do that. That's what I can tell you. Let's use every means to do it. Let's find every opportunity to do that. Tell the crew I'm looking forward to having that conversation, and I'm all in. I'm committed, man.
Absolutely, man. Love you, big bro, and I
love you more.
Looking forward to us. All right, talk to you soon. Well, thank again, my big brother, our big brother, Dr. Williams, for joining the Super Duper Pod. Always teaches us something, always puts us on. So he'll probably be on more frequently just because, it's a little nuts outside and needs somebody to make sense of it all. So again, to recap the books that he gave us, Happy Land by Dorleen Perkins Valdez, Black and Blues, How a Color Tells a Story of My People by Imani Perry. Go get that on Amazon, especially with the Now What book that we mentioned earlier. Again, Vomiting. So again, thank you guys. Again, I want to thank Dr. Williams for being here as always, and again for coming in last minute, but helping us out and just talking us through because it's nuts outside, bro. Trump thinks this is real life. The Apprentice. It's like, bro, this is the country.
It's been a crazy
real person at the
couple of weeks here.
Yeah, and it ain't gonna stop.
Try not to look at your 401ks if you got one out there.
Hey, well, in some place, I heard it's some congressperson. Did you see that? She started buying all kind of stocks because stuff was down. You know what I'm saying? I don't give misinformation, but it was something I'll find it and send it to you. Like some people out here buying stocks now because everything is so low and it's going down.
Well, yeah, a lot of a lot of your billionaires made some money with the jump.
Buying the block. So,
yeah.
Shout to Robin Hood. Or Robbing Hood. Is
Robbing Hood, yes.
Yeah. But again, thank you for checking out the Super Duper Pod. We do not take your listens lightly. Make sure you follow us on all socials, SUPA, DUPA, POD. What up, Sarah? And online at hp53productions.com. Make sure you take care of yourselves and each other. As I miss anything?
No, I think you covered it all.
All right. Hey, mama, this is the Super Duper Podcast.
We do not complain, we make lemonade out of pain. That's champagne, real pain, champagne from you and I. Wait, you and I? Now that's champagne if you was I. Would you be off on this campaign? Is it suicide? If you know that bringing hope here is how careers die. Or do the K stand for kamikaze? The J silent is everywhere, you can feel them probably. Surely, lately, I've been up late with demons in my basement trying to get me to hate this. Life thinking I should be further and then I choke up. As soon as I got silent, then the truth spoke up. This said, how you know you ain't perfect? Let that soak up and soak in. You know how you know that you're blessed? I woke up.